edition of The Howl. I'm Kelly Harris.
And I'm Agnes Conley.
This new opportunity for students and faculty combines morning announcements and staying true to our calling as Ignatians for others.
Our first topic for The Howl will be stereotyping. Stereotyping presents itself in many forms in our school community.
Stereotyping is a prevalent issue in the St. Ignatius community, causing tangible tension within the student body. Yet, the problem is rarely confronted and, as a result, commonly not fully understood.
So we hit the streets of St. Ignatius College Prep to hear first-hand student experiences with stereotyping in our school community. Let's hear what they had to say.
Hey, this is Cal Merton from Lincoln Park neighborhood, Chicago, Illinois, and the most stereotypes that I see are social stereotypes.
I'm Jacob Yaskis. I'm from the Archer Heights neighborhood in the south side of Chicago, and I see racial stereotyping the most today.
Hi, my name is Kel Doyle, and I live in Westtown in Chicago. I see racial stereotyping the most at St. Ignatius.
Hi, I'm Marilyn Tessie. I was born in Venezuela and I moved to Chicago 4 years ago. I currently live in South Loop and I see racial stereotyping the most.
The top answers were racial, socioeconomic, neighborhood, and gender.
As we are focusing on stereotyping, you should know
We are 82% Catholic,
70% of the students come from Catholic grade schools, 20% from public grade schools, and 10% from private schools.
we're 60% from Chicago and 40% from the suburbs.
65% of the students are white, while 35% are minorities.
That 35 breaks down into 13% Hispanic, 10% African American, 4% Asian American, and 7% multiracial.
25% of students get tuition assistance.
Hello, Mr. Harris.
Hello, Katie. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for meeting with me.
Anytime.
So, I have a few questions to ask you.
Okay.
In what tangible ways have you seen the way where we come from divides the St. Ignatius community?
Perhaps the most tangible evidence of what we might think of as division is what happens in the Tully Hall at lunch. I say what you might think of as divisive because I don't think that it actually is divisive. If you walk into our dining hall, you are apt to see clumps of students that you could readily identify sitting together. And I think that happens mostly at the freshman and sophomore years, although it does happen later on. But I don't see that as divisive actually, because I also see it as a kind of support system. So what I've noticed happens is that quite often freshmen come in and they find that group with whom they most identify or with which they're most comfortable. And it shouldn't surprise us that that's either by ethnicity or by sport or by neighborhood, parish.
Do you think some students at Ignatius are ostracized because of their background? And do you think students at Ignatius are judged by their background over their character?
Very generally, this is, I think, a very general question, and my general answer would be that in any community that's going to happen. Unfortunately, in each community, it's going to happen. So yes, and that goes from freshman year on. And for that small percentage, that small number of Ignatians who continue to do that throughout, sometimes we plant the seed here, and perhaps the seed was planted here, and it won't begin to grow or to take root until 4 years of college or graduate school, or sometimes in their professional career. But certainly it does happen.
How does your identity as an educator at Ignatius make you more aware of the divides in our school? What do you see that students don't?
I see the long vision. I see the long view. As a student, you are so conditioned on the right now, and perhaps developmentally as teenagers, that's where you are as well. But I've been in your right now, and I've been in the now that you haven't seen yet, and I'm actually at this point probably 4 or 5 nows ahead of you all. So that long view allows me to see and to understand that people can change. So again, when we talk about that small group, whether the seed is planted now and it takes root later, unless we decide and actively endeavor to live in a vacuum, to live in a bubble, there's no way that you can get around genuine, authentic interaction with someone else who is different than you are, different than I am.
How have things changed in terms of stereotypes over the years?
As I kind of said before, I don't want to be negative, but honestly, I think a lot of the stereotypes of different groups, whether it's race, gender, culture, sexuality, I think a lot of the stereotypes are intact. I think they're the same as they have been from when I was a kid, and possibly, maybe not from when my parents were kids, but I think a lot of them are still intact. I think the difference is, here particularly at Ignatius, I think students come in freshman year, maybe with them a little bit stronger than they end up with. Senior year, we've done a couple of polls here since I've been teaching here, and we find that with things like stereotypes and bullying, things are generally worse in the freshman class, and then the surveys get more positive, sophomore year, and then more positive junior, and then more positive senior year. So I think that at Ignatius, while students come in with particular stereotypes, a lot of it is, I don't want to say erased, but a lot of it is eradicated, or we combat a lot of it, and we, here at Ignatius, students evolve a little bit better, a lot better than at other schools. So I think that over the years at St. Ignatius, stereotypes get torn down, and students' thinking changes, and what they believe changes, but I do think that the actual stereotypes themselves are still intact.
And what kind of actions can you recommend or try to promote for students to try to change the culture, or do anything that they can, I guess?
I think what students need to do is I think they need to, I don't want to say police each other, but I think they need to monitor each other a little bit better. So, and what do I mean by that? I think I bring it up in the freshman diversity orientation when I talk about, or when we talk about this idea of being an upstander. The adults we talk till we're blue in the face, but I think the changing of the culture comes with the student body, and first of all, being open to changing themselves and what they believe and how they think. And then not only that, but once that happens, part of that process is if they hear or see their classmates or their peers doing something or saying something or believing something, to actually fight against that. And if there's a group of 10 kids and 3 kids are saying or doing something, and the other 7 kids say that's inappropriate, that's not cool, why would you believe that, and actually be active members in trying to change what their peers believe. I think that's important. And I'm not saying not being friends with those people. I think positive influence is great. I just think it's a matter of speaking up and saying what you believe and not being afraid that, oh my God, what are people going to think of me? But I just think, speaking up is important.
All right.